going to talk a little bit about the unique positioning of promotional writing and copywriting. Promotional writing is there to persuade you. It's marketing. It's, it's like it says, it's promotional. That is the main objective of this writing. For regulatory writing, you are writing documents that need to meet that help you achieve regulatory requirements within regulatory agencies for things like clinical trials, those types of things. Grant writing is to inform people, to educate people, scientific writing and grant writing. Health writing is also for education. CME writing is for education and to certify for ATPs, for them to go through their accreditation process. So this is unique in that sense that it is persuasive writing. It's not necessarily meant to educate, although it does. The goal of it is to persuade someone to do something. The audience here, healthcare professionals, it's patients, it's the general public. For regulatory writing, it's regulatory bodies, clinical investigators. For scientific and grant writing, it's academic peers, it's funding agencies. For health writing, it could be the general public, it could be healthcare professionals. And then for CME, it is healthcare professionals. The content style, the content tone for promotional writing, it's persuasive and engaging. For regulatory writing, it's very detailed, it's very technical. The document has to look a certain way and it has to be consistent every time you create that document. For scientific writing, for grant writing, again, it's a bit technical. It's data driven though. You've either conducted a study or you're planning to conduct a study in terms of grant writing. For health writing, it's educational, it's informative, it should be accessible to your audience. And for CME, it should be, again, educational, but also compliant because it's part of an accredited program. And then finally, the outcome of the focus is market success, product adoption for promotional writing, right? You want your new product to fit in smoothly with the current market and for ATPs to, prescribe it to the relevant patient population, or for patients and the public to ask their ATPs about it. For regulatory writing, it is about compliance. It's about approval. You want to make sure those documents are in good shape, so that the agency can go on to do its clinical trial, or the regulatory body can approve a drug or something like that. For scientific and grant writing, it's about knowledge dissemination. It's about obtaining funding. For health writing, it's about public health improvement, education, raising awareness. And then for CME, you want to fulfill certain learning outcomes. It's about professional development. So you can see they're kind of all of these distinct categories of writing, and then how promotional writing is specific and different from the other four. So you want to ensure that you are not being promotional in other deliverables. You can see this is the only one really that is supposed to be persuasive. The other ones are to meet, regulatory requirements or to educate. So you don't want to be unduly persuasive in other types of writing. So as a medical writer involved in other projects, you want to make sure that you're supporting informed decision-making without commercial influence. People want you to educate them objectively and reliably, and they want to be able to trust you to provide them with scientifically backed information. And we talked about how promotional writing has its own standards. The other types of deliverables have their own standards. So we don't want to bring in a promotional angle, promotional tone for that other content. Consumers tend to not like that. They don't want to feel like they're being sold something in the form of educating them. When you're doing promotional writing, it's very clear that it's promotional writing. You're being advertised to, and then there are those regulatory checks and balances that are supposed to make sure that that what you're saying to them is not misleading. So you want to make sure that's not bleeding into other deliverables. So we want to make sure we are not making these common mistakes and we're thinking about those checks and balances beforehand. So we're not exaggerating benefits or understating risks, right? We do not want to be misleading healthcare practitioners and patients. That is that's kind of like the balance that you're looking to get in copywriting. You want to make sure that your claims are substantiated from the data that you have. We want to be clear and transparent. So again, we want to make sure that we're not using too much medical jargon, especially if you're targeting the public or consumers and not HCPs. You want to make sure that you're not saying things that can be really easily misinterpreted. So we want to look into our choice of words. We want to think about what those words are implying. Are they overstating something? Are they understating something? Could they be misinterpreted as something else? We don't want to over rely on gimmicks or tactics. We don't want to have you want to be a little creative and you want to be a little eye catching, but you don't want it to not read like it's credible, like it's not accurate. So it can be a bit of a fine balance, but the goal is to make sure that we're not misleading the reader. And so we want to be looking out for those types of things. And then we don't want to be inconsistent when you're messaging across platforms. So this one is talking about how campaigns won't be effective if readers are confused. So this is a little bit back to a bigger picture idea here, where it's a wider campaign within the pharmaceutical company. And so we're thinking about working with our strategy teams, with the pharma client that you have, what their long-term goals are. And so you'll notice if you do copywriting that when you're working with a brand, when you're working with a pharma client on a specific type of brand, that the brand has its own tone. It has consistent messaging. It's got a way that it describes its product. And so you want to emulate that as a copywriter on that brand so that the messaging is consistent, the tone is consistent. It doesn't go up and down. You're not talking about the same thing 5 different ways when the brand has a certain way of saying it.